I really like Dave Smith. If you guys haven't heard him, he's a great comedian. He does a lot of work with Joe Rogan in Austin, Texas, and a lot of other places. His political commentary, I think, is really solid. And he went on with Piers Morgan recently. Now, for those of you who don't know who Joe Walsh is, Joe Walsh used to be, I believe he was a congressman in the GOP, and then he was out, and then he basically became a anti-Trumper and a main fixture within the Democratic Party establishment. And so now this particular conversation is sort of a microcosm of what's happening on the GOP side, in particular, as it relates to somebody like Tulsi Gabbard, potentially becoming the head or the director of national intelligence. That's a big deal. And so the tired old tropes, yes, a different Joe Walsh, Henry. But this is very interesting. It says a lot about where things have gone, as well as the xenophobia, the Russophobia, all of that ridiculous bullshit. Let's assume that all of that is true. I would not qualify Tulsi as pro-war, definitely a Zionist, but I also believe that Tulsi is calculating. It's a means to an end. But that's not what Joe Walsh was talking about with Dave Smith. Context is key. So here's what was said.
Let me get a Jillian. For an asset because everything she's done the past 10 years and said has been exactly what Russia would want her to say or do. So she's either an asset or a dupe.
That's the dumbest standard ever. Who cares? If I said Saddam Hussein doesn't have weapons of mass destruction, that might be exactly what Saddam Hussein wants me to say. That doesn't mean anything. You see, Piers, this is the trick here. And I'm sorry, I know you want to go to Julian, but the trick is that the same way they used to say Trump-Russia collusion, they wouldn't say Donald Trump's in a conspiracy with the Russians. You see, because that's actually meets the criminal code. And then so you just say collusion because what does that even mean? They could have had a phone call. Okay, they're colluding, but that's totally legal. So when you say she's a Russian asset, you give this wink and a nod like she's a traitor, when what it means, and Piers, you disagree with me on this topic too, but listen, the argument is that there were 1 million off-ramps to the war in Ukraine, and that the West chose to not take any of them, and that this war could have been avoided, and it could have been negotiated away. Now, the idea that if someone makes this argument, your counter to that is to say that you're a Putin asset. This is so, first off, it's just despicable. And
the fact that he responded with, yes. Remember, these guys are paid to push pro-war propaganda and to label people anti-American. Say what you want about Tulsi. This woman is a lieutenant colonel in the National Guard. She has been a medic in combat. This woman serves our country, and admirably, I might say. We can disagree politically, especially in terms of the fact that most of what she does is very calculated. No question about it. But the idea that you're going to smear a veteran, an active duty member of the armed forces, I just... It's sickening. Call her a Shmuley-loving Zionist who's doing it all for the career opportunity. And yeah, it's very career-oriented with Tulsi. But the whole Russia bullshit, at some point, it's got to die. And it's just pathetic when people are still espousing this. Now, of course, Joe Walsh is a douchebag. It's so obvious. Yeah, and Tulsi's also an Islamophobe. But with that said, whenever they always go for something that has nothing to do with the topic at hand, you know it has everything to do with pays the bills. It shows you how strong and powerful the Israel lobby is. And Dave Smith is a Jew, and he is adamantly anti-Israel, pro-Palestine. That's the libertarian way, mind you.
And it's profoundly stupid. It makes absolutely no sense at all. So listen, at least during the original McCarthyism period, at least during the House Committee on American Activities, at least back then, there were some communists. Nobody is loyal to Vladimir Putin. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
You're entitled. No, Tulsi Gabbard, of course, is entitled to her opinion as a citizen of this country. But if for 10 years your opinion is identical to Russian propaganda, we are entitled to question that. And someone like that,
you're saying nothing, and I'm entitled to make the point that that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my life.
You both made your points. Let me bring it. Okay. Time out. Let's bring in Gillian. Been waiting very patiently to get back in here. I mean, Gillian.
Imagine being this much of a colossal shitbag. Joe Walsh, Rachel Bittkoffer. It doesn't matter, guys. Honestly, it doesn't matter what side of the political aisle you fall on. At the end of the day, it's all about the green. Who's going to pay me? And Tulsi did it too. Tulsi went and worked for Fox News, got herself a nice paycheck. She's a great speaker. I've met Tulsi a handful of times. I've seen her stump speech. I was actually impressed because Tulsi remembered me when we ran into each other the second time. She remembered my name. And look, like I said, I can be chummy with her. I can get along with her, but I know a calculating person when I see them and when I hear them. Tulsi's extremely calculating, but she's good. That's why they have to come at her with everything they've got. But if you're going to do it, at least do it with something of substance. Tulsi Gabbard has a very positive view in many ways of Modi, president of India. Modi, you want to talk about a real nationalist? I'm talking about like fascist level nationalism. It's Modi. 100%. If you guys are not familiar with the president of India and the war, if you will, between them and Pakistan in particular, it's very real. And that is something that doesn't get talked about. And remember, just as Base Chad would say, it is about the money. That is why it doesn't get covered. No, Henry, it's the people that are the paid propagandists that can't have a conversation because they're not allowed to deviate anywhere from their arranged talking points that they are paid very handsomely to espouse when they go on these shows.